Welcome back, folks. This is the last part of our very long but very entertaining talk with Chris Vangelus, so please enjoy.
This is the effect I have on other people's podcasts. That they'll go like, "What?" And we've never had a 5-hour runtime before.
Oh, but have you listened to Scott and I talk? Yeah, we can definitely stretch
during
it out.
spoiler season. I mean, come on.
Me and Scott are good to go. So just apologies to you.
No, I'm good. So, well, then I will kick it back to Scott. Like you were saying, the man behind the curtain sort of thing. But what else did you have on your list that you wanted to go into, Scott?
Let me check.
Or anything off the top of your head, because I'm looking at the list now, and we kind of touched on a number of the dedicated Transformers related things. Here's one, actually. I'll give Scott some time.
No,
so I've heard rumor, Chris, that you're kind of a wrestling fan.
So yeah, I when I was a kid, I thought wrestling was cool because I grew up in the time period where it was the new gen where they pushed everyone as cartoon characters, and so it was built to get kids like me to go like, "Oh, this is cool." And I was always a very wannabe goth, so I always thought like, "Oh, I like the supernatural characters a whole lot." Mm-hmm. Nowadays, what I enjoy is I really like the idea of pro wrestling. I've seen it live now a couple times, some Ring of Honor New Japan shows locally, which is probably the best thing to see live, which is incredible. One of those dudes is also a big Kamen Rider fan, which is fun.
Okay,
but the thing I enjoy about it is what it is now, where everyone knows it is performance and how one can appreciate what it is as performance. But for me, that means I like it when it doesn't try to maintain a very grounded realism.
Okay.
So I really enjoy stuff like Broken Matt Hardy, for instance, is something I have enormously enjoyed because I feel like that stuff like Broken Matt Hardy, stuff like Lucha Underground's first 2 seasons, where the pro wrestling is the action sequence, but it is contributing to a completely fictionalized story, is something I really enjoy.
Gotcha.
And I know for a fact there are a lot of wrestling fans for whom that is absolutely abhorrent. So I don't fit in a whole lot well with pro wrestling as a huge fandom, but I like watching bits of it. I just like it when like the fight performance is impressive, or when the character work gets really out there. Like Broken Matt Hardy in one of his cinematized fights reversed a poison spit, which you can't do in real life.
Okay.
But the thing that I like about his stuff is it's all still grounded in pro wrestling logic, if that makes any sense. So if someone spits poison at him, what he does is he inhales. So he inhales the poison spit, then spits it back at them, and then it does the poison spit thing to them. Because whenever someone gets spit in the face in wrestling, for whatever reason, it's as though someone threw acid in their face, even if it's just water. They'll always go bah! And like turn over and fall on the ground and roll around. And there's something of a logic to like, yeah, he pushed Y to reverse the move, as in a video game.
Makes sense.
Or there was something I saw, as you can see it on YouTube, there was a guy who would do a thing, it was the slow motion grenade. So he'd mime taking a grenade out of his trunks, throw it on the ground. Then everyone in the ring would just go with it as though it had exploded, and they all went into slow motion. They'd be in slow motion. The ref would be in slow motion. There is a clip where the announcers and the crowd also go into slow motion.
They got the crowd to buy it.
The crowd goes, "This is awesome," and then they clap really slowly. And
that's fantastic.
They do stuff where a dude would go to the top rope and jump, and 2 guys would basically carry him so he'd fly in slow motion and collide with somebody. It's amazing because I was like, yeah, like one of the comments someone would leave on that YouTube video would be like, well, this is just making it look really fake. And it's like, all right,
you don't say.
I don't think that was a concern.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I wasn't there when they drew it up, but maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I think as a performance medium, there's so much cool stuff to do. Like, you know, in the big league, big money stuff. Like the only one I can think of right now is The Fiend. Like having a dude get to just play a supernatural character full on with like straight up a demon mask and stuff, like, and then to play that straight faced, and they already screwed it up a couple times, but this carries over to what I like about tokusatsu as well. It's like when you do something like that with costumes, with live action fantasy, as long as you do it with a straight face and you're not like kind of glancing at the audience going like the whole time.
Yeah,
I really love it. Like there's something about the genuineness of it, and what it asks of the audience to also be genuine when you're watching it. Like something about that I really enjoy. And so that's kind of my, in a long way, that's all my answers are this long, but in a long way, that's what I enjoy about pro wrestling, is like the performance of it without asking me to go like, also you got to pretend like you didn't find out how it works, because I'm like, I just can't though. Like I know how it works, and I'm more impressed by it now that I know how it works. Like when I watched it in person, you don't understand when you watch it on TV. When you're in person, anyone who can pick a person up in person looks three times bigger than they do on TV. Their legs are as thick as my head.
Yeah.
And when they do any kind of move, be it a suplex, be it a jump, anything that involves landing, it is deafeningly loud when they land. And like that's without the whole like mics under the ring thing. Like just the physical noise. I mean, granted, I always ended up in the front row, which was cool and helpful, but like it is so loud when they do the stage slap to get that big like noise, like the big chop or something, or even the kick where they slap their thigh. Those slaps are deafening, and I'm like, there's no way you do that without being a trained performance athlete who is taking a very stinging experience to create that noise.
Yes.
And watching some of those dudes who are, maybe they're not 6 feet tall, they are still 3 times my size while looking like a He-Man action figure. And then when you see them in person jump from a height of like 10 feet and land on 3 other people who catch them, but in a way where they look like they also got hit by a falling object, it's fascinating to behold.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. And there was definitely a moment when I was a kid, watch wrestling with Dad back in the day, and then you find out what the reality is, and it's a disenchantment. But I've come around, I don't want to say in recent years, but over time, to exactly what you're describing, where I can appreciate the physical ballet that has to occur in order to produce what we see. And it's just one of those things that it's just, if you take a step back and think about it in that capacity, it's pretty impressive.
And also just identifying what you enjoy about it. Like, like I know that I enjoy it when it gets really ridiculous. Like that to me is what I want.
Yeah.
And so like I can enjoy like watching 2 highly technical dudes just go at it and have a really good match or something like that. I can watch clips of that even and be like, oh, this is neat. But like, I don't usually go out of my way to watch it because I'm like, unless there's something where I'm like getting pulled into the incredibly fantastical storyline, like it's going to take work for me to really get invested.
Yeah.
That's why I like it when it pushes that stuff. Or one of my favorite ones is Yoshihiko, the blow up doll. There's
that one I don't know.
Oh,
you're gonna have to elaborate on a little bit.
Okay, do you know the Golden Lovers?
No.
Okay, this is a New Japan thing. So do you know Kenny? You know Kenny Omega? Okay, so Kenny Omega has a long-time performing partnership with a fellow named Kota Ibushi.
Okay.
Kota Ibushi is astonishingly talented at, if like when I refer to it as like the medium of wrestling, Kota Ibushi's like if he's made out of paint basically for that medium.
Okay. I got you.
Ridiculously talented and will just do anything. Like they did a bit where Aja Kong from he's a female wrestler from Japan. Like they did a bit where Kota Ibushi was going home from buying groceries, and they did a TV prank bit where like a crowd just formed around him and they pulled out ropes everywhere, and then Aja Kong walked out and was like, ah! And then Kota Ibushi, like you can see he doesn't know what's happening, but in less than a second he's just going with it.
Nice.
So he goes like, ah! He like goes at Aja Kong like, bring it! And Aja Kong like goes to punch him, and Kota Ibushi like does a backflip in the street. Does a backflip and like goes down. So Kota Ibushi did a 20-minute match against a blow up doll. A group called there's a promotion called DDT Pro, and Kota Ibushi put on an incredible storytelling fight with a blow-up doll, where like he was taking pile drivers. he was taking suplexes because he could perform the side of that he would be doing while making the blow-up doll look like it was doing the attack side of the motion.
Damn.
There's a part where he takes I think it's like 7, I think it's called a sunset driver in a row, where he puts himself in a about to take a powerbomb position from this blow-up doll. Like he bends over, puts the doll over him. And he basically just forward flips and lands on his head 7 times in a row to imply that the blow-up doll had done that to him.
That is impressive.
The blow-up doll also had a guy in like a black Zentai suit as like a puppeteer every now and then to like the blow-up doll had to like do something when Kota was out of like. There's a part where Kota goes out of the ring, so the puppeteer runs into the ring, picks up the blow-up doll, and runs, and then spins it around a few times as though it's doing a cartwheel, and then just physically hurled it over the top rope at Kota Ibushi, who catches this blow-up doll, who's very light. But Kota Ibushi makes it look like a 300-pound person just hit him full on in the face. And goes back into the crowd seating. Like, it's incredible.
Jeez. Is this on YouTube or something?
Yoshihiko has multiple matches now with Kota Ibushi.
Oh my god.
They've done a series.
I'm gonna have to look this up. That's hysterical.
It's incredible. It's incredible. You watch it, by the end of it, like some of the comments are the best. The comments are always like, "Man, you wouldn't think a blow-up doll. You wouldn't think that this match would have been a 5-star match. Thank goodness Yoshihiko was there to carry Kota Ibushi to that 5-star ending."
That's
like Kota Ibushi does a giant swing to Yoshihiko where he has trouble getting it going first. He makes it look like Yoshihiko's too heavy to like start swinging him around. Like Yoshihiko's like trying to reverse it, and it's all Kota Ibushi like mock wrestling with this inflated rubber thing in a t-shirt.
That is actual insanity. Like that. Wow.
Like to get across the notion of weight is like a stage mime skill that some people need like a year plus to even learn.
Yeah.
And dude is doing it and also having a fight with the thing. Like it's incredible.
That's unbelievable. I'm gonna have to check that out. That's pretty funny. Good lord. Well, let me tell you.
Someone's probably also about to comment going, "It's the stupidest thing in the world," and they're probably right, but it's also precisely what I like.
Well, my answer to them is, what do you hate most about fun? Is it like what do you hate most about fun?
The lack of realism,
obviously.
Right.
Grounded realism. Slams fist on table. Well, let me tell you, I did not expect that that's where that question would end up.
I'm always ready to talk about Yoshihiko. Let me tell you. I got one other quick one.
Okay, good.
I gotta make sure I get his name right. There's a New Japan guy who has a mascot that's a cat.
Okay.
I think it's Takahashi.
Like a house cat, or you mean like a panther?
No, like a little plush cat in a t-shirt.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah, Daryl. That's the cat's name. Daryl Takahashi, the cat.
Okay.
So yeah, Takahashi has this cat named Daryl. And there was a whole bit where people started attacking Daryl, and Takahashi would like, that's how you get him distracted, or that's what get him to like lose a match. Is like instead of attacking his partner, you attack his plush cat.
Gotcha.
And
that's the secret vulnerability of the boss.
Well, at one of these Ring of Honor New Japan shows, Takahashi was there, and he put his cat on the announcer table that I was near.
Okay.
And he would like look one of the announcers in the eye and go like, "You're gonna look after Daryl." And I was telling my friends, I'm like, "Guys, I'm kind of new. I'm kind of marking out. We're sitting right next to Daryl." That's Daryl Takahashi right there. At one point, one of the commentators was Colt Cabana, who had like a thing they were going to do where like, you know, they pick a fight. Some of the guys in the ring pick a fight with one of the commentators, Colt Cabana. So Colt Cabana stands up, and then he grabs Daryl by the neck. And that's where I understood what the audience part of the experience is. Because I was just readily going like, because I was standing right by the announce table, I was one of the people where I just pointed and I just shout like, "You put Daryl down!" and then Colt Cabana takes Daryl into the ring and like threatens to he throws Daryl onto the floor.
Yeah.
And the whole crowd's like, "Ah!" And Colt Cabana threatens to elbow drop this plush cat, and me and like countless other people stand up out of our seats, hands held forward, go like, "Don't do it!" Takahashi's like on his knees, like, "Don't! Not Daryl!"
That is awesome. That is amazing. I don't have any words like that. I don't know how to describe that.
That's another capsule of like that's what I enjoy the most about that medium is like you do something ridiculous but with a straight face, and then if I'm there in the audience, I don't even get to question if I'm going to take part. I'm like, no, I am going to scream at that dude. You leave Daryl Takahashi alone.
Yeah, that is spectacular, and I could definitely get behind that where it's the over the top silly, but everyone treats it as real life for the moment. And that's definitely enjoyable with those sort of things. That is, I'm just blown away by both of those. To be perfectly honest, that's hilarious.
I'm here to turn your podcast briefly into a wrestling podcast. It's just something I do.
I've listened to a few WTF and TFWs. I know how the story goes. I have a few under my belt. So, well, Scott is back. So, Scott, how much of that story did you catch? Because I know you had to step away briefly.
Most of it at the end. I just had to run out real quick.
Okay. So let me kick it to you because I've been picking his brain about wrestling and mostly laughing my ass off, to be honest, in case everybody out there couldn't tell. So go ahead, Scott.
So the last question I have is, it's kind of like it's the same question, but like in opposite sides of the coin. So like, how do you think that somebody that only plays the card game should get into the fandom and where they should go? I mean, obviously I have my opinions, but like what your opinion would be at like an expert level. And then the opposite would be, how do you think somebody that has no experience with a TCG could get into Transformers TCG if they were part of the fandom?
Those are things I have put thought into.
Good.
I think it's very important to actually have those two throughways because it exists.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about TCG first, fandom second. To start off, I think because the thematics in the TCG tend to be pretty strong. If you play the TCG and you just really like a deck, there's a place to start. Go and start looking into those characters that you like to run. And find out about their various stories. What I would tell someone is that the only thing you really need as a preamble to Transformers as a fandom is that there is no one continuity. There is in fact like hundreds of continuities, so don't worry about it. If you find one you don't like, just see if the character has appeared anywhere else. Eventually you'll either find that character barely gets used, or you'll find one that you like, or at least you'll find enough to come up with like a character for your own version of the deck. Like if wave one, you really like running bugs, you love running the Insecticons. Okay, who are these guys? These guys I like to run. I know I'm not running Bombshell, so I don't care about him.
Right.
But wait a second, he's one of the purple ones, and some of these guys aren't purple. What's up with that? That's already like a whole weekend you can spend now. Like go look up the Insecticons, look up the deluxe Insecticons. Maybe either get bummed out or take solace that the deluxe Insecticons have borderline no canon characterization.
Right.
So you just have tech specs. You can start kind of making up your own version of it, or you can go like, damn, on the other side of this, I would really like to run the 3 purple ones. I'm going to just try figuring out something with Bombshell. I remember back in Wave 1, I ended up figuring out something with Bombshell, but it unfortunately had nothing to do with the Insecticons.
Sure.
I ended up really liking... I really liked running him with Nemesis and Flame War. Like, that was my favorite Wave 1 deck.
It sounds hypothetically very defensive. He had
huge... I think he had 4 defense, so...
There was a Bugs player I played against who did the math, and in one of our tourney games, he was like, I wasted 35 attack points on Bombshell. I never penetrated his 4 defense.
I could see that, yeah.
So yeah, if you're in the TCG first, like just look at the decks you like to run, look at the characters you like. That's the easiest anchor. Find out about them. In doing so, you might find out about other characters where you're like, well, their card isn't very good, but now I just really adamantly want to figure out a deck that at least has a satisfying gimmick to it, like a personal win con. And then so I think that's really about it, because from there it's a C. It's like you just tell someone tell someone there are multiple continuities, and not even in like the DC Comics way. There are like every coloring book is a separate continuity. So just don't worry about canon. And if you don't like what one canon is, you probably will find another one.
Exactly.
Just have fun. And so on the other side, if it's a Transformers fan who wants to play the TCG, that's where often you can kind of say the same thing. Is first off, who are your favorite characters? All right, let's figure out if they have cards in the game. I've done this before, at least once with a friend, where I like to sit down with them, like, okay, you like these characters? Let's figure out what cards they have. Now let's figure out, like, are those cards actually in any like ridiculously powerful decks already? If they're not, are they in any kind of, are they capable of just being a fun, powerful deck in the first place? If they're kind of junk, are you okay trying to run a sort of like gimmicky junk thing where you're really just trying to do one thing? And I always try to stay equipped to be able to play against friends who want to do that, so that I'm not just like, oh, you want to run Triptychon? Cool. Well, I have Major Shockwave or Octane.
Yeah, that could be problematic on a number of fronts.
That's actually why I love the Micromaster teams, because if you make a Pauper deck for a Micromaster team, half the time it's like, no, this is a fun gimmicky thing that a friend can play something else dumb against. Or if it's like if it's the planes, we eventually realized, like, you don't run the planes against someone who's trying to have a good time, because mathematically you have to start explaining things to them about why are all your guys swinging at me for 5 to 7?
You did nothing. Why are they hitting me so hard?
Yeah, and then like they cost them like this big.
Yeah.
That's, boy,
postage stamp size. Yeah.
Slight tangent. One of the reasons I got to look at those gameplay videos is, like, it has the Plains team, and there's a bit in one of them where I'm just like, man, like, mathematically they got to do something about friggin' Tailwind. And the next day they revealed like a whole bunch of spoiler cards.
Right.
Where you're like, screw that 5-star character. So I gotta make sure, like, I don't want to leave that whole bit in, at least without a bit of voiceover, because otherwise it's going to be like, all right, guys, well, you old relics from early 2020, let me tell you what
That's fair.
But yeah, like if you're getting into the game from the fandom, just look and see where your faves are. Look and see what some of the top decks are, and if there's any matchups in there. Look to see what just some common decks are, if there's any matchups in there. So character thematic wise, I think there's just tons of through lines. To someone who doesn't play a lot of TCGs, what I would also say is, like, don't be intimidated by the 5 waves. First, figure out are you, like, it's sort of a flow chart. Are you okay with buying singles? Yes, no. If you're okay with buying singles, boy, this is easy. Especially if you're in the States, where it's like it's nothing to order off TCG Player. Like, we can just make you a list and order some singles, get you a deck for like $10-20, and you're good to go. If you're down for buying stuff, if you're straight up like, no, I'm going to go all in, I'm going to be buying booster boxes, then I'd be like, okay, well, if you're in the States, might as well get Energon Edition, because that's a booster box of Wave 1. That's a stack of characters that all have mechanics you can have fun with, and there's also some goofy dice, and you can roll those.
And it's just pretty as a set, like,
Yeah,
it is visually impressive.
And if you're a new player, it's like Wave 1 is still a good booster box to get.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Those characters all have decks you can play with them. Megatron might end up being kind of disappointing, but the rest of them, it's hard not to find at least like a gimmick deck.
That may be a repeating pattern down the line as well, but yeah, point taken.
Poor Megatron. Lord Megatron was pretty freaky in Wave 4 for that.
Yeah, I had high hopes. I have high hopes, I think, for every Megatron that we've had since Wave 1. Every time I see him.
Not to tangent more, I'm kind of hyped to play around with Titan Master, Megatron, and Optimus, just because I like how much stuff they have. It's all kind of like, just, it's a little middling in the big picture, but I just like how much stuff they're doing, because I'm like, that's a gimmick. It's like it's like Astro Train. It's a big clear gimmick that I can clearly slot some stuff into and play around with. And
right.
That's also what I tend to tell, or what I say, like, tell. I always get my tenses weird. It's weird because English is my first language, and I still get tenses weird all the time. Hypothetical future is what I would, in that hypothetical future, often tell someone coming to the TCG from the fandom, is like, there's a lot of characters that are a bit of a gimmick, but like, it's really laid out what to do with them. And if you love Astro Train, it's pretty straightforward, like what Astro Train wants to do. If you read his card, see what all the sides do, and you can build a deck around that. Superion is super straightforward what Superion wants to do. That's like the most classic combiner deck that you could build. I want to flip all my guys and combine them and do damage. And it's like, yeah, it
seems okay.
It's straightforward, and if you play against someone who's like going like, noob, and not paying attention, like, you're gonna there's a decent chance you'll accidentally punch them in the kidney and they'll just fall over, right? Like,
it can happen. Some of those themes and those ideas, they do, as you're saying, they form cohesive builds, even for someone starting out. Drew has said it before, where it's those flag post or roadside, I think he said flag post is what he was calling a lot of them, for building those sort of decks so that it's an easy onboarding point.
Yeah, and the only real warning I give people from the fandom getting into the card game is like, don't go nuts. Like buy if you are able to buy a whole whack of cards, go for it. But like if you want to be frugal, like I said, there's so many decks that you can just look up a list and just get the singles for it. If you are in an area with players, there are so many people who will just hand you commons.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And like you can probably show up, buy a couple booster packs to support the store, and get handed an off-road patrol aggro deck and just go for it.
Right.
And have a good time. Really, the only thing I would warn someone who's not into games about otherwise is just don't get daunted by the notion of high level play, especially if you haven't played at all. It's because with Magic, that's what happened to me. Is I got into Magic, I immediately went onto YouTube, started watching YouTube videos, and then I immediately was like, well, if I'm not playing as good as every YouTube video, am I doing it wrong?
Right.
And then it's like I also have been playing Magic now. If I ignore the childhood part, enough decades passed, it can't really count anymore. So if I'm playing Magic, I'm 6 months into playing Magic. Should I be concerned about whether I'm like maintaining a high level of play? It's like, I mean, I could, but unless I'm aiming to be like an e-athlete, it's
not necessarily what you're getting into the game for, like setting a goal for what you want the game to be as a hobby.
Yeah, and with Transformers TCG, it's so lovely that you can aim to learn a really strong deck and simultaneously aim to learn and run like 3 to 7 mid-tier gimmick oriented decks that just have a cool thing they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're a masochist, you can also just keep trying to figure out Trypticon.
Well, you're not alone in that effort, but
to me, Trypticon's the loud one. The one I genuinely want to figure out, because I'm so sure there's so many moving parts, is Menasor. That's the one where I've cautioned friends, because they're also all commons. It's really easy to go like, well, I can get the Stunticons. And I'm like, the thing about the Stunticons is like they do stuff, and even if you just work with them as they are, they're a lot more brain burny than a lot of other decks you could run, because none of them all do the same thing. You're going to have to keep track of one of them shielding the others from direct damage. You're going to have to keep track of this, and this. If you combine, you're going to have to keep track of doing 2 actions every turn. And if you're just getting into the game, that is a lot of mechanics to think about as well. Right up front.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's funny. We actually had a night where he was actually really good against the other combiner teams, is what we found.
Yeah.
It's like,
I remember that, yeah.
I remember when I got my advanced box of Wave 2, and this was also pre-Canada synchronization, so we didn't even know when we were getting Wave 2.
Right, yeah, I remember when that was a big deal.
Mm.
I just built a Superion deck and a Menasor deck because I was lucky. I got all the common combiners in one box. So I built Menasor, I built Superion with all the new cards, Noble Blaster and everything, and I played them with some friends, and Superion kept losing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh man, is Superion not good? And then a few months pass, and I go and read up online what's going on. I'm like, oh no, never mind. I was also building 2 decks out of 1 box. That could also be
that could skew a few things a little bit.
Yeah. That's also when I was obsessed with rapid conversion. So like every deck was like buttloaded with rapid conversion and lots of wave 1 mentality. Like
there were a lot of things, I guess what I had assumed at the time, precedents that were being set, and flagship cards like the rollouts, the rapid conversions way back when that quite rapidly fell by the wayside.
You can probably find a recording of a podcast somewhere where I'm like, rapid conversion is the single most important card in this entire game. I can't even fathom running less than 2 in a deck anywhere. I love that I said that at one point.
I've said a lot of strange things as well, that if people go back on old recordings, I was actually thinking about them the other day when we did the Wave 1 set review like 1,000 years ago, and trying to think back on other ones outside of rapid conversion and rollout, and there were other things that I'm like, yeah, this has to show up at some point. It's like, nah, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. It's not a requirement.
That's actually the one other caution I would give to a fan coming in to the TCG is like, if you can buy boxes, that's cool. Buy boxes if you are a completionist and you really enjoy ripping boosters. Right. And or you have friends to play limited with to make the most out of those boosters. Right. If you're not into that stuff, because having every single card, like one thing, if someone says is there power creep, I'd be like, well, the nice thing about this game is the power creep is there, but it's usually sideways. instead of upwards.
Mm.
So it's creating more stuff rather than taking things that exist and just making them even stronger at the expense of everything else.
Right.
But there are like, if you were to like chase play sets of every single card, there are still lots of cards you probably wouldn't end up using a whole lot the longer you play the game. Unless you have really strong thematic ideas, or you're coming up with like a commander deck style puzzle of a deck.
Yes.
That's going to do something kind of kooky. And I would say, like, at the end of the day, I would also say it is a trading card game, and it comes with all of the downsides of that. So I've had at least 2 friends who have said they would play it if it was an LCG, and I'm like, no, I get it. The upside is you kind of can LCG your way into anything that isn't rare or super rare just by virtue of being around a player community.
Yep.
And you can still make a lot of decks. That's why I'm also such a proponent of coming up with a pauper format, because I think that could balloon the accessibility of the game, since in this game, like, commons are usually not complete trash on the level that they are in like a Magic the Gathering, where it's like,
yes,
we've made cards for
or
draft.
at least the modern commons.
Yeah. They like draft chaff, I thought, was people being, gamers about stuff, and then you hear designers talk about, oh yeah, this card was designed specifically to fill out the limited format. I'm like, you mean the one where you open the pack once?
Yep.
That's ridiculous to me. And, like, we have limited oriented cards in Transformers, but like, I feel like a lot of them, there are some cards I still think are categorically useless as a massive optimist, but there are a lot of cards where it's like, yeah, it's based on limited, but like in a hypothetical limited constructed format, like hypothetical pauper format, this could still have a place.
We had tried something similar with that, or we're planning to, until real life, with exploring block with the 2 siege sets. So a lot of those cards that many people may discount as limited fodder would have found a home in these things, where exactly your point, whether it's pauper or other constrained constructed environment, some of these cards could shine. It's not to the level of Magic or other games where it's that thing's not seeing the inside of a sleeve.
Like as a non-expert, I still feel like I got a grip on this with Magic, where it's like in Transformers we have a card where it's like it's like 1 black pip weapon gives you +1 strength. And it's like, well, that's not very good. It's like, yeah, in Magic they have like a card that costs 3 mana. It's a 1/1 creature that does a thing you're never going to do.
Yeah,
like that's if you want to see the scaling. So like a 1 pip weapon that does +1 serves a function still.
Yes.
A 1/1 creature who costs more than 1 mana with an ability that's nothing is literally useless. It is dust. It's corrugated cardboard. Like,
yep.
I'm going to avoid getting on that again, because like it bums me out that artists have their hard work put on cards that are seen as garbage.
Does that feel bad? Yeah, I can see that. Again, I have no artistic talent, but I could certainly being a little frustrated on that end.
Yeah. But like the trading card game, collectible card game, it comes with stigma, and it comes with danger too. If you are, if a Transformers fan also says, yeah, I'm barely keeping my toy collecting under control, and I'm real pliable to addiction purchases and gambling, and it's like, woo, yeah. Blind pack cards are probably a real.
Yeah, this should somebody needs to put up some stop signs and some flags or whatever to let that individual know ahead of time.
Yeah, that's where I just hope that local player communities can continue to blossom, because that way you can let people in. I would, quote unquote, for free. Ideally, right. They buy a couple packs or at least singles from the store, but like. That's why, like, I've had friends go like, I think I'm going to recycle all these commons I'm not doing anything with, and I'm like, just give them to me. I'll archive them away. I like sorting cards. It's a weird problem I have, but I like sorting cards. I'll put them in the long box.
You want a second job?
Yeah. Scott is always looking for extra hands.
I've been that person for friends opening boosters at stores where I'm watching them just dump cards, and I'm like, just give me that. But like I've taken sorted play sets of commons and uncommons, and like at a TF con, I put into the charity auction with Aaron's help. It was a set of every common and uncommon battle card and character card from wave 1 and 2 as like a kind of beginner starter set at the charity auction. And I think stuff like that is also like good prize packs for new players. If you are in the great situation where you have new players just coming in to play like a limited format, and you can go like, hey, do you want every common? because I can just give you every common in a little plastic baggie right here.
Right.
And as of the Micromaster teams, I feel like that's more of an actual thing someone can play with, as opposed to in Wave 1, it would be like, here's
Random
a box
conglomeration.
Yeah.
And that actually spurred something. So you brought up TFCon. Has the TCG really, because I've wanted to attend TFCon before, I wanted to attend BotCon before that, and just, it never worked out, and may have to wait a little bit longer based on the way things are going.
Yeah.
But has the TCG really seeped into those events? Because as an avid toy collector, I wanted to go there for the toys first, but is there a draw there as well, or is it still primarily toys?
It's going to be primarily toys. Just through attrition, it's going to be primarily toys. But
I wasn't expecting to like take over, but I didn't know if it was a, there will be random people playing, and it's like, hey, you want to play a couple games, sort of thing.
We've managed to have a dedicated TCG room basically at every convention since Combiner Wars.
Okay, cool.
Rise of the Combiners. And it depends. At that point, it depends kind of on the convention location and who's coming to run things. And there's a lot of learning in that. Like for instance, we had one in Toronto where it was run as a tabloid paid event, but it was also 2-pack turbo. And it was multiple rounds, and it was best of 3. And through that, and then me kind of looking at some of the written rules that I think might have gone up after the fact, I was like, because a lot of that event, I was like, this feels like a grind, and there's a lot of feel bad if your 2-packs weren't good.
Yeah.
And then it was also done with like 2-pack turbo, but you could also purchase another 2-packs and either use the first one or, put the first one away and only use the second one, so you could kind of get
that's a head tilt / eyebrow raise sort of situation.
It was like trying to figure out what they were trying to do was figure out, as the vendor who was running was trying to figure out, how do I run a tournament that is accessible but also has entry fees for prizing. And so they were thinking 2-pack turbo basically at the time. And
I can see the logic. It just
it was good that we did it, because the learning experience from that was 2-pack turbo should never be best of 3 unless you're just playing with friends. Because if you have a bad 2-pack turbo and you do best of 3, game 2 feels like literal hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
And you also paid maybe $5 to enter the event, so you're like, I gotta sit this out. I paid $5 to enter this.
Yeah. But you're trapped.
I'm running Scrapnel. I got paid to do this though.
I've sat through a few of those myself because my wife loves 2-pack, so like across a number of games. So whenever we play or whenever new sets come out and I pick up the boxes, it ends up boiling down to, all right, we got to set a few aside so we can do this.
Yeah, and so like I said, they were doing. I think they were still doing a very good job, given that there was no knowledge to operate off of.
Right.
Before this, and so I try to offer help where I can. The thing I will straight up say, the thing I've shied away from doing is being the one running it, because I want to play.
Oh yeah.
So,
I got
you. At a certain point, I think unless more folks show up who become as mechanics minded as myself and a couple others, I may end up needing to be there in a non-player capacity to help with judging.
Gotcha.
Just because I'm not like a rules expert, but for whatever reason I grok mechanics pretty well after a while. And when I've done it, but I've seen it. Seeing it from the outside in makes it clearer to me. When you're in the heat, like that moment where your brain's actually warm and you're like, I figured this out. I'm gonna do it. Like, mechanics are the last thing on your mind, and you're just hoping your autopilot works. And it really helps to have someone else go like, yeah.
Well, that's why they're judges.
Yeah. But at TFCon, TCG, as far as I know, it's always going to at least have a room. And even if TCG ends up losing its room for whatever reason, there's always lobbies, there's always seating areas, and there are always people now who at least have some of the game. There's been times where I've gone to a show where someone's like, I've never played it. I have a bunch of the cards. I want someone to show me how to play it.
Gotcha.
At PAX Unplugged, there was a fellow who's doing some webcam playing. And I'm real great at forgetting names in the moment, so I apologize. I'm going to go look it up while I'm talking.
All right.
But he put out word on Twitter the night before the EI, where he was like, I'm here for the show, but I got introduced to this Transformers TCG, and I really want to play. Is anyone out there playing this game at PAX Unplugged? And I didn't think much.
Well, I got a story for you.
basically, I don't think he knew the EI was happening until I told him about it.
Oh yeah, well I'm
Yeah.
sure that's the case, or it would have been, oh yeah, I'll go to that spot.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you want to enter a tournament?
Yeah.
But he basically that night, I forgot what day the EI was of the week. Was it Saturday? The EI?
It was Friday and Saturday, yeah.
Friday, yeah, Friday.
officially,
It was Friday. So Thursday night he posted that, and I went to bed thinking nothing of it. And then Friday morning I woke up really early and I saw that he'd not been replied to at all. And it was like 3 hours till the EI started. So I replied to him and I was like, I got 3 hours if you want to play. And yeah, he had a pile of cards, like tons of cards. So I was like, yeah, I'll tell you what all these are. I'm gonna set us up some starter decks. I'm gonna caution you, maybe don't look at these cards until you've played a few games, because this is gonna get confusing if you start thinking about all these mechanics.
Right.
And that's why I've been such a big proponent of the Windblade Bumblebee starter, because those two decks, if you split the deck, give one person the star card and one person not, give the star card to the teacher. It's a beautiful way to teach the game. So many mechanics present themselves, even in Wave 5 now. Just the fact that you're getting every pip color, if I recall correctly. Maybe not black pips, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm trying to... I think that was pre-black pips, but regardless, yeah.
Also, black pips are the one to not have in the teach game.
I would agree. Yeah.
And yeah, that, like at TFCon, I can't imagine anymore going to a TFCon and not finding someone who's like, oh, I'm down to play some games. Like, they might not have brought their cards, but if you were there hoping to play, you've probably got a couple decks on you.
Right.
You're like, you okay running my Devastator or something?
Yeah. Nice. Well, it's good to hear that it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, just the overlap between the micro fandoms within Transformers, for lack of a better way to describe it. That it is, because I'll admit, when the game was first announced, I knew I was getting into it, but it was okay, well, if people are collecting Transformers toys or other Transformers media, are they willing to go in on yet another thing? Or is Magic going to eat our lunch? Is it, all these factors that came in that obviously, if it's present at these areas and people are interested, that they were unfounded fears, I guess.
Well, I'm just going to quickly say I found the fellow's name is Brian Wiggins of brian-wiggins.com.
Okay, cool.
Who I was teaching the game to. In Toronto, we had at least two players who were basically like, yeah, I used to play Magic and I got sick of it and I really love card games and this game seems good, so that's why I'm playing it. So I think when it comes to Magic eating our lunch, it eats our lunch in terms of table space at a store.
Absolutely.
In terms of
That's
getting on the
happen.
microphone. It makes it hard to attract players because it's just louder and it has more shiny things to give people
Of course.
for playing. But I've heard the story multiple times now of the person who got kind of sick of Magic, not the culture, even the culture has problems, but like the players are not always the problem, but just the financial culture, the like you said, the non-strategic metagame of Magic can just become sickening after a while to deal with. And I've heard the story of like, yeah, I got sick and tired of Magic. I really like card games that have this much thought that you can put into them, and so Transformers is filling that role nicely. I know Ash's Rise of the Phoenixborn was filling that role for some folks for a while as well. Star Wars Destiny was filling that role for some folks for a while. There was a Destiny community in Toronto at Harry Tarantula, which is another place we'd been playing Transformers, and vicariously it sucked so much to see them have to like life support their way through their own game, especially in Canada. Asmodee prize support is, you know what, I'd take no prize support rather than waiting for Asmodee prize support is what I saw. It's Transformers collectors, like, speaking for lots of people with a broad strokes brush, we've bought a lot of nonsense. Like there was the old Transformers card game.
Tell me about it. Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day, like all the random branded Transformers games.
Yeah, like that's I said it earlier, but like Transformers toys, usually you find something cool. Media, like comic books, TV shows, etc., movies, usually you'll find something you can enjoy. If it's not those two things, though, boy howdy, it usually goes bad. It's like a happy accident when like we get a good video game.
Yeah.
It's unthinkable. It was unthinkable until I sat down to play with the Gen Con stuff Aaron sent me and my friend, that a TCG about Transformers would be anything but a goof. We were expecting it to be like a Tactics all over again. That was a tactic.
Hey, I like a tactics. Let's not get wild.
I'm not going to trash tactics.
I know.
I'm going to say a tactics' packaging hugely did damage to the idea of it being a game.
Oh, there's a we actually, like I said, we were talking in Discord about all the variety of stuff, and I brought up a tactics, and somebody said, "Yeah, I have no idea how to play." And as somebody that's played, of course, it's like, well, it's just these are the rules. But yeah, there were a lot of. I will accept that there were a lot of things wrong with the tactics.
Tactics had more depth to it than I thought when someone actually told me how it works. Is the thing, because the part where you move things a number of clicks across the table.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, there's measured movement in this game? Because all the packaging makes it look like set up your friend's stuff and shoot missiles at them, and that's it.
Yeah, it just looks like regular G.I. Joes, effectively, with missile launchers.
Yeah, I felt like there could have been a different messaging on that to, I don't know, make it sound more like a brain activity.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun. Not to digress too far on that, but that's something. Because we were also talking about Transformers' potential for miniatures games. I thought the WizKids figures. I think you did a video on those as well, right?
Yeah, that was my one interview I shot at PAX Unplugged when I thought I'd still be able to do all kinds of stuff other than the EI.
About that, yeah. I had high hopes for that because I thought it was going to be a miniatures game as well. Obviously, that didn't turn out, but it seems like an easy space to insert the Transformers property, and depending on the company doing it, do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that company would not be Wizards at this point, so they're not really into that. So
yeah, they aren't. And it's, I mean, I would love to see a tactics come back just because I think the concept itself is hysterical. Like, I like the idea of shooting the little missiles or swinging the guys to hit things rather than a traditional, build and paint minis thing. Although I'm doing that with other games, so I guess why not that too?
Something I've learned since looking into board games is like the entire genre of dexterity games, like Flick 'em Up, and stuff like that. Crokinole being the big Canadian one.
Yep.
And a tactics, I think there's a version of a tactics that is a somewhat kiddie, somewhat goofy dexterity game. I think that the click movement is interesting. I think it's too easy to mess up. Because you'd have to push down, right?
You have to press a little bit. I mean, to be honest, these are now 15 plus years old. I think they were early 2000s was when they first came out. So let's just say some of the parts are starting to deteriorate.
Yeah, I think you need to do two things at least. Number one, just use a movement measure. It doesn't have to be inches. It can just be like units on a stick. And number two, make the products themselves, make them easy to replace the springs, so you can ensure that they maintain their efficacy.
That's the challenging part, yeah. Because I've obviously having them, I'm on the lookout for okay, is there a garage sale that had old toys that are about the same size? Can I steal I'll take the thing home, strip the missile launcher off, and then glue it on this other one because then it'll work again, sort of thing.
Get yourself some tensile wire. Get yourself a big rod and just get a little smithing area so you can start making your own springs.
It's so simple. Why didn't I think of that?
So I'm a solutions person. All right?
See, this is why we got you here. So I got all these questions. I have plenty of questions. We'll get answers.
But yeah, a miniatures game always feels like that's like 2 steps away, and then something happens where everything has to take a step back for a second, perpetually.
I mean, it's kind of in the same boat as a D&D module for Transformers, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah. The miniatures are nice. Like I think it's really cool that Transformers is getting to pop up in places like miniatures, or like those actually terrifyingly complicated little metal models you can do, like the flat pack metal models.
I got one of those for my birthday and have not tried to assemble it because they look complex.
They look so easy until you open it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, how hard is it? Oh boy, I'm gonna do that another weekend.
Yeah, Transformers. I'm not gonna hold my breath on it. I think the TCG is so much of a happy happenstance. I'm not gonna hold my breath for that kind of thing to happen a second time in a row.
Fair. That's I can get behind that.
But yeah.
There's been a lot of we said this earlier, but we've been pretty fortunate in other realms as far as media goes with Transformers. So yeah, if we get our TCG that's working out well, I can accept that and live with it. Don't want to get greedy about it.
Oh, and where I think this started was like, are Transformers fans going to want to buy a whole TCG? And like that basically, I think anyone who's a fan of Transformers who's remotely interested in a card game would probably look to that first, unless they're already invested in another lifestyle game.
Of course. Yeah.
And then we just got to get them out of that lifestyle game. Just go like, listen, Keyforge is fun, but you got 50 decks. You got enough to last you for a lifetime.
Exactly. Besides, these have characters that you know and love and grew up with.
Yeah, and you know what? You don't
completely
need to keep buying decks to get a combiner, hoping you get the 2-card Tyrannosaurus Rex thing. You just go get you a Dreadwing. Go get you a Dreadwing.
Maybe we'll pick a different combiner. But yeah, maybe not Dreadwing, unless they really like Dreadwing. I know Palmer was all in on Dreadwing and Menosaurus for a while, so.
I'm still a Dreadwing fan as someone who's barely played as him, because whenever I play against one, I'm always like, oh crap, because I'll play against Dreadwing and then it'll be about halfway through turn 1 where I'm like, oh right, there's going to be like 50 mounted missiles on this thing. Yeah,
I forgot about that. I mean we're starting to go in circles for some of these things, but it sounds silly to say, but the customizability for this particular game, I think, plays right into, well, the character attachments, and that, okay, well, you can still do a cool thing with your favorite character, even if it has to be at the kitchen table and not at the game store just because it's competitive there and it's fun here, sort of thing. It gives people a lot of outlets.
That's why I was such a big fan of most of those retro stratagems.
Yes.
Like the Volcanicus one is to me still just a masterpiece in taking, like, original Volcanicus was my biggest problem, stepping away from a lot of opinions I have about it, is it was simultaneously a gimmick deck and also a massive brain burner.
Yeah.
Just to do one thing once. And so that stratagem at least makes the thing so satisfying that it elevates it up to, like,
there's a good
this payoff. Is a puzzle. Yeah, this is a puzzle where when I solve it, I'm not getting given like, all right, you solved the puzzle, here, have a salad.
That's
now I get a candy bar.
at least it's enticing at the end for the carrot you're chasing. I can get behind that. It's funny you bring up stratagems. I meant to ask you about those earlier in the legacy stuff, and how you felt about it as compared to, would you always want to see new things, or just kind of tack on an unrelated question. Since I know the story about you and Spreem, how much do you appreciate that the game does kind of have those deep cuts of pulling in these obscure or arbitrary characters? Would you prefer, or do you think it would be better if it focused on the big stars all the time?
I think if it focused on the big stars, less Transformers fans would be interested. So I think the deep cuts are actually what draws in more Transformers fans who don't play games.
I can see that.
To look at this one. Wave 1, to this day, there are still people someone who hasn't paid attention to it, you'll wow them if you tell them there's a Flame War card. You'll double wow them if you tell them, oh, and they also made a second Flame War.
It's like, there's no way.
Yeah. Those deep cuts, I think, are what makes the game feel genuine, and it's what makes the game feel like it isn't just another farted out chick in a box. Like, Transformers didn't have a card game. We got to make it a card game.
Right. And it's not just the 4 evergreens.
Yeah, exactly. Like even the deep cuts, like, hey, the promo Headmaster, Titan Master is going to be another brainstorm using a name the toys can't use anymore, and is going to be a Decepticon to reference a thing from the comic books.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, cool. Or Tidal Wave. To do Tidal Wave is such a massive statement as a store promo. Yes. Not even as, like, we're going to make Tidal Wave a single, uncommon character card, as a goof. It's like, no, he's going to be a 3-part combining deck in and of himself. We don't have his Minicon in here. We're going to work it in by giving you a slot for a Micromaster. Like, that kind of stuff to me makes that always makes people who don't play the game, who are fans, get interested when I tell them what the game's doing. Like, even if they don't want to play a collectible card game, they're like, I just don't like, blind pack cards. I'm like, that's cool. They'll still be into what they're hearing. They're like, no, if you can ever just hand me a deck then I'm down. Like
Right.
that sounds really fun.
Yeah,
I think it's hugely important.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I do get a sense of, and it's not like I've talked to a ton of people or I've done some exhaustive survey, but there is the general fatigue of, well, how many Bumblebees can I see? How many Optimuses can I see? How many whatevers can I see? And the fact that, like, Sky Shadow is a thing. Who the hell would have said, name your top 10, name 10 Transformers, let alone your top 10 or whatever, to an arbitrary person. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Sky Shadow is not on the list, but he's still prominent. And I actually had a conversation with some of the WotC guys at EI, and like, it made sense that if you have these obscure characters, it helps draw all those different micro fandoms together, because it's somebody's favorite character, and also it's, well, who is this character? I want to go learn more. I thought I knew all the Transformers, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, and also it's like someone who just thinks Sky Shadow is cool. Like they really like Black Shadow, the old, like the original Sky Shadow from Master Force. It will tickle someone when you tell them, like, hey, you know Sky Shadow? He's freaking kicking every ass right now in the TCG that he showed up. Turns out. They're going to be like, you know what? Good. Like, does Sky Shadow beat Shockwave? Does he beat Optimus Prime? Does Sky Shadow beat Optimus Prime? Oh, he's beating some Optimus Primes. Good.
My time has come. But yeah, go ahead.
This is a game where, in the limited format, like, to me, one of the biggest moments is dudes who don't know a ton about Transformers telling me, like, oh, we're playing limited? Hope I pull Raider Ion Storm. And I'm like, you care more about Ion Storm than anyone in 30 years has cared about that one animation blip that we gave a name at some point.
Yep.
And I love it that, like, they give Flame War being this omnipresent 5-star character for like half the game's life cycle at least. And you tell people, like, that's another time where I told people, like, oh, everyone runs Flame War. They're like, everyone runs Flame War?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, they made Flame War good. Like,
that's definitely a cool moment that I agree with you that it's come up before. Of, if it's not Flame War, it's pick other random character that has shown up, or everybody has their favorite.
She was never random to me because I played Transformers Legends on my mobile, and she was really good there. So
I loved it when she was in that too. I was when Legends was putting in like deep cuts like that before I dipped out of it, I was like, it's cool you're mixing in stuff like like Dr. Arkeville in Legends. I'm still, every time I talk to those WotC guys, I try to always mention, there is really good artwork for Dr. Arkeville. And he may be a human, he's in a giant chair, and you made Scamper.
Hey man, we have technically 1-star characters. I mean, maybe there's a way.
Yeah. But also just quickly bouncing off those retro stratagems, I also think that those are also nice to be able to tell people about who've been spectating that, like, hey, that super rare that everyone said sucked? Like, now it actually has a through line.
Yeah.
Or with Cosmos, like, hey, Cosmos was that kind of like spooky thing when you were playing Wave 1 before you dipped out. Like, they did a thing to re-spooky him.
Yeah.
He's re-spooked.
The Cosmos one especially, I mean, I tried really hard competitively, and he looked good for a while, but it cycles right back to Cosmos isn't obscure, but I've found a new love of Cosmos due to other media, so the interlinking of all these things is, it was going to be obvious, but I do appreciate it.
I should also, just to reference another previous part of this, there is also briefly a Cosmos in Cyberpunk Season 3.
Ooh, okay.
But yeah, like really the only one of those stratagems that ended up really bumming me out was actually Windblades, because I'd participated in that deck building challenge, and so had two of my friends, and we put lots of thought into Windblade, and then when they revealed the stratagem, we were like, that's literally the one thing we didn't really feel like we wanted anymore.
Give you stats,
it was very plain, even by comparison.
Like, her stats are like one of the fun parts of running that deck is like, I got this beefy centerpiece, who's not going to just get, cut down in one turn. There's double digits. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was a bit of a bummer. But the rest of them I've enjoyed. Like, the Springer one is just absolute goofballs, but like, I still love the idea of the engine building repair deck, where it's like that deck I ran in Standard Magic. I liked the idea of life gain with perks.
Right.
So whenever you can start like getting like recursive life gain ticks, and then someone benefits from constant life gain happening. Like I like that idea.
Well, then you may appreciate the new Optimus. I know you'd mentioned you wanted to try him out, but
ooh, okay.
Yeah, the new Optimus, Titan Master Optimus. Yeah, he seems okay. We have a few things that we showcased him on, but I actually like that deck a lot.
I ended up liking life gain when I found that I was able to do it as a way to, like, in a snap, I can like undo someone else's turn of effect to my side.
The way counter spells were meant to be played, right?
Yeah, where it's like, oh, you did 3 damage to me. Okay, I'm going to start my turn by healing 3, so that turn didn't happen. It's like technically it's like their turn still happened. They still drew card. They still executed part of their plan. But
really, none of it mattered. None of it mattered.
It's that thing I kept talking about with the EI. Like, I kind of like the psychological end of playing card games. That like you see it in Magic when you see anyone playing against blue, right? Like it's an immediate psych out, and like the part where in some situations the mechanics of what's going on are one thing, but like the hypotheticals of what you might be doing can just mess with somebody. Like my favorite thing I remember for this in Magic is I went to a pre-release. It was Core 2019, I think, where they did all the Elder Dragons again.
Okay.
And I had junk, and I didn't know how to build a limited deck without a really obvious through line. So I just ran this, kind of junky 3 or 5 color deck. I had inadvertently been running all the colors of Nicol Bolas. And there's a guy where I took at least one game from him because he was absolutely convinced by my land placement. He vocally said this constantly. Like, you got Bolas. Crap. Oh, God, you got Bolas. Oh, no. He altered
just messing with this guy the whole time.
His entire game plan altered around preventing me from summoning a thing I didn't have.
That's hilarious.
When the game was done, I told him, I was like, dude, I got to tell you, I don't have Bolas. He's like, what?
Just flips the table. That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
That side of card game of one-on-one card gaming is like something I just find really interesting. Like at the EI, my favorite example of it, well, I guess favorite's not quite the right word, but like the one that jumps to mind is preparing for fatigue at EI. And like, in that case, knowing that there's going to be a lengthy limited segment, knowing a lot of people can get very hot during limited, as far as like if you get a bad pull, it's gonna put a lump on your brain that doesn't go away for a couple hours, and that in those couple hours they're gonna have to keep playing. And so the way that manifested for me was just like deciding between running Major Shockwave or Octone, and then at the last minute when I finally submitted the deck, I was like, I'm gonna run Octone because if my brain gets a stone stuck into it, I don't want to have to think about Major Shockwave as well, as a pilot of that deck. Like
that's fair.
That's going to possibly lead to just a meltdown. So I'm going to run Octone with 2 Battle Masters, where all I really have to do is think about Octone for the most part. My Battle Masters are part of the plan, but like the brain work is like, okay, where do I aim the bounty? Where do I, what do I put on Octone?
Exactly.
I get my stuff for him.
Makes sense.
But yeah, that's I haven't thought about that actually in a while because I haven't played in a while. But I like the idea of figuring out, like, can I psych out the opponent? Can I just do something where it like looks like I'm going to do something clever? Like, there's a friend of mine who I was telling, he was running a Nemesis Prime deck with the White Pip Autobot the rescue team.
The one with Sea-Watch, the boats.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it because of the boat.
It's only one boat.
All those boats, that car boat, that truck boat.
Exactly.
All those boats. And he was using that with all the White Pip stuff just to churn through his deck.
Right. Makes sense.
He played it, the first time he ran it, someone just assumed it was a Daring Escape combo deck and freaked out and was playing kind of dumb. And I told him, I was like, dude, you should just put a copy of Daring Escape in there so that
they see it. Yeah, because they'll see it and go, oh God, what's happening?
It's like if I was going to run Springer without Daring Escape, I was like, I might just put a Daring Escape in anyway, just to make the opponent think I might have thought of something, and then they're going to have that in the back of their head the whole time.
My man playing psychological games against everybody.
Psychological games in a card game to me, like when they're not like, I guess specifically when they're like that, and they're not like you stare the opponent in the eye and go like, I know where you live or something like that.
Yes, that's a little different.
It's psychological in the context of the cards on the table.
Yes,
I find it really fascinating, and like obviously you're going to play opponents who are confident and who aren't even thinking about what you think you're trying to make them think about. But it's a fun aspect of the game to me, and I feel like it's one that like one can engage with if one feels like they're not super strong at deck building or have trouble concentrating on piloting something complicated. Is like, think of some goofy tricks you can do to like make an opponent for a game like get distracted or get annoyed, like Bombshell in Wave 1 would annoy people by not dying.
I would imagine.
Or in my Octone deck in Wave 4, one of the reasons I loved running Sights is because Sights with focus on defense and in a sort of blue-black oriented deck with a couple grenade launchers is like Sights would always I'd find Sights would die about a turn or two after the opponent would in some way clearly be really irritated Sights hadn't died yet.
They go, all right, I'm getting that guy now.
Yeah, and I'm like, I like the idea that like you're getting real mad at my Battle Master who gives Octone a massive boost when you kill Battle Master. I want to make you want to kill the Battle Master just by being irritating.
Seems like a sound game plan.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to think about. With Titan Masters, I haven't even put any thought. Titan Masters, I'm still trying to figure out. Like, I'm still trying to get my head around all the heads because I adamantly don't want to think. Yeah, I don't want to think of them as their stat boosts because I think that's the easy thing to do. That is probably the most sensible thing to do. Mm-hmm. But like, I want to be the person who's like, no, I'm not putting the +1 on. I'm putting Briscoe on this guy. I'm running Optimus Prime Briscoe, and I am not telling you what Briscoe does, even though I have to glance down to look every now and then to remember. I also can't remember what Briscoe does.
That's one of those stat boost ones.
He's one of the stat boost ones.
I didn't want to interrupt you while you were on a roll.
Okay, they gotta tell him that I know what Briscoe does. Tell him I invented Briscoe.
I'll write your name on the Briscoe I have.
Invented by Chris Ho, and they're like, "Oh, did you win the yeah. Why is it in Sharpie? Oh, printing error.
Exactly. No, that's an autograph. It's an autograph copy.
It's like Topspin with his stars. It's printing error.
Yes,
so I had to fix it.
Oh God, if I have to hear more about Topspin.
Topspin. Something I can just run infinite Topspins because we read what the card does.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay, so Scott, what do you got?
It's 11:45.
Okay.
I gotta go to bed as well.
All right, then we will wrap it up. Chris, kick it to you at the end. Anything you want to plug? Obviously, you mentioned your show a number of times. Where can people find you? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, I'll do the list. If you want to hear some podcasting, it's primarily hosted on tfw2005.com. If you go to wtf.tfw2005.com, that is our main podcast page. Within there is also our WTF at TCG podcasts. Those also go up on YouTube because I like the TCG a lot and I want to put them there. And on YouTube, I also function there. I'm Vangelus Central on YouTube or Vangelus with a 1 instead of the L. I forgot if both of those still work. But if you look up Vangelus reviews, you'll find it. If you look up Vangelus TCG, you'll find some TCG stuff. I have a playlist. I try to add everything to it of just, booster openings and TCG stuff, podcasts, etc. I'm on Twitter as Vangelus. I'm on Instagram as Vangelus Central. On Facebook, there is a page called Vangelus Central that I post updates to, but it's mostly when I put up new podcasts and videos. Instagram and Twitter are where I usually am the most. And I'm about to put up a video. I got to shoot 2 more clips for it. I'm about to put up a video of 3 Zero's premium Bumblebee movie Bumblebee, the 14-inch tall one.
Nice.
I've been having among other things in lockdown. It's I'm really glad a lot of people said it first. The whole thing of like, don't feel bad if you're not productive, because boy howdy, it's been hard for me to feel productive. Back half of every month in lockdown, it's been a time dilation nightmare.
Yeah.
But no, I finally got that video put together. I've got one coming for Earthrise Prime as well. I need to film a whole bunch of it, but I got all the script and audio done for it.
Nice.
And I'm hoping that's gonna. I'm really hoping that'll kick me into some momentum of like just rolling on, keep going. But those are my main spots. I also really like talking about Tokusatsu, Kamen Rider, Ultraman, Super Sentai, Garo. I'm into all those things as well. Not in any citable podcast form right now that I'm aware of, but I've popped up on podcasts about that stuff. Cool. Yeah. Other than that, like Twitter's where I am the most right now. Not saying Twitter's a great platform; it's just where I am the most right now. And if I ever seem like I've disappeared, I'm probably still floating around on Twitter somewhere. But
gotcha.
Yeah, if you like TCG, if you like Transformers, if you like robots, if you like dudes in suits fighting, hit me up. I like talking about that stuff. I also like talking about TCG stuff. I hope I can get in on all of y'all's webcam play and Octagon play more once I can get over
we'd
those
definitely
tech
love to
humps.
have you. We'd definitely love to have you because it's been a great pleasure talking to you, Chris. It's been a lot of fun. Very long, but because we had a lot of fun.
I mentioned it twice. I will once again. I have to do this. I always apologize when I pop up on other people's podcasts, and it's like, all right, so it's now. Oh, it's 11:45. We just hit the 3-hour 8-minute mark.
How
Usually
precise? It sounds like you may have a recording yourself going.
I might have recorded locally just as out of habit. It's just me though. I didn't do the call record.
I'm sure it's part 3 or whatever we're looking at, so it's all good.
Yeah. I will say I also tend to apologize twice if I know the podcast has also an editor afterwards who no one is ever going to be talking to. I'll just start talking to them, but I can't do that here. As far as I know, anyway, unless you got one in a box somewhere.
No, it's you're looking at him. So, but
I'll apologize to you, Mr. Editor, that you have to go through all this. You know, you had to comb all the ums out of everything
about that. We'll maybe if we sign up for like a coal miner service or something. But anyway, all right, folks. As I said, it's been a lot of fun. Chris, thank you for joining me. Scott, thanks for staying conscious with us. Oh, not a problem. Well, hopefully, if you had enough fun, we can hit you up again at some point down the road to have you back on, because I think people will like hearing from you when this goes live.
Oh, give me a poke, especially if anyone out there wants to brainstorm some dumb stuff like other formats or come up with the Metroplex boss fight. Let's bounce ideas.
Nice. Sounds good to me. All right, folks. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and Black Lives Matter.